Hey y'all, this is Whitney and welcome back to an episode of Spastic Chatter. Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the cerebral palsy community, and I get together weekly with individuals with CP like myself to have a kind of uncensored chat, if you will, about what it's really like living with this type of disability. And for this week, I have Sonya, and I came across her again on Instagram. I like to search Instagram for some rad people, and I came across Sonya, and she has a really interesting profile. She's a choreographer and an activist, and I'll let Sonya introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Whitney, for having me on Spastic Chatter. This is exciting for me to be a part of the community in this way. So you covered it when you said I'm a choreographer and an activist. I recently graduated college, and my thesis was a contemporary dance production where each piece depicted a social emotional experience of having cerebral palsy from my perspective. And unfortunately, it was canceled due to the pandemic, but I'm still taking dance classes and choreographing on my own and ready to jump back in when live performance is a thing that we can do again.
That's very cool. I'm like intrigued by that, like your thesis and stuff. But I want to take it back to the very beginning. I do this to some people. How was your childhood growing up with cerebral palsy? Because everyone's different.
Yeah, so I grew up in upstate New York. I have two parents who don't have physical disabilities, and then an identical twin who has a disability that is not CP and is less physical. And I would say that my childhood was like fine emotionally. I was well taken care of. But I did feel different, and I used a variety of mobility aids, but I never used a wheelchair. And then in adulthood, I realized that wheelchairs are a thing that I could use that might be helpful. And so I'm about to get my first manual wheelchair, and I'm really excited about that. But it took me becoming an adult and finding that on my own. That wasn't really like made available to me when I was a kid, and I don't know that I would have wanted it when I was a kid.
Yeah, you brought up several good points, but one of them is like the manual wheelchair. Like a lot of people see a wheelchair as like a bad thing. There's a theme on this channel that like as we grow up, as we age with cerebral palsy, we come to accept our disability, or I don't want to say limitations, but we come in our own. So you're saying that you sort of accepted the idea that a wheelchair might be beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm okay actually using the word with limitations, because I find it really not problematic, but I don't think it helps us when the message of like I can do everything that non-disabled people can do, because I have limitations and I can't do everything.
Girl, I'm right there with you. I'm all about using the word disabled.
Yeah.
But I recently, there's some trolls out there that I recently came under fire for using the word spastic. There's
no, like more power to you and your spastic, Bob, because like I will be the first to say that I have limitations and I am spastic, and I think being able to say that is what allowed me to open up to the idea of using a wheelchair, because growing up I was around a lot of non-disabled people who equated like doing well with like looking non-disabled.
Exactly.
And I'm like, but I am disabled. Like it's never going away. Like this is who I am. And so coming into it as an adult, I'm able to be like enthusiastic about it. Like this is what I want. A wheelchair is a good thing.
I'm exactly like that. When I was going to, well, I'm a little bit older than you. I think I'm 30. So like when I was like a teenager, like younger adult, I was all into using like the word differently able, and like I was like, I don't have a disability. I can do everything you can do. Like, and now I'm just like, I cringe myself. I was like, did I ever? Why did I ever think like that? Like, I'm disabled and I'm proud. There are things that I cannot do.
Yeah.
That is okay. Like,
do you know the meme with like the skull exploding and they're like the different levels of discovery? Where like at first it's just like a skeleton and then there's like some colors and it's sort of expanding and there's like all of these different panels.
Yeah, I think
that's what this reminds me of, is like that's a phase that I had to go through, but now I've like expanded my view and I'm on like one of the last panels with like the really colorful picture where like I feel like I have more options, because to me that's what a chair is, or what a mobility aid is just another option. So like I don't obviously lose the ability to walk the minute I sit down, and I'm privileged to have the ability to walk, but the ability to walk to me is just one ability, and then the ability to use a chair is another part of my ability.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like for years, I would not use a power chair. Like I wanted to use a manual chair because I wanted to appear less disabled than I already was. And those were my exact words for using a manual chair. Well, I have very poor range of motions, so like it would take me hours to get places, and then like I just came to terms with a power chair would be so much easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like you just coming to terms with yourself and like being more secure with your disability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word easier, because I think there's this idea from non-disabled people that I'm supposed to be like working as hard as I can all the time, or like pushing my body to its maximum capacity all the time, but like it's actually fine for us to do the easier thing and probably healthier, because like yeah, I could walk a full day, but then I'd be like exhausted and in pain, similar to what you were describing with like avoiding using a power chair. And so I think it's really important that you say like it's easier to do something different, because there's no, like I say to non-disabled people, like imagine if you were sprinting at full speed all day. Like that's what you're expecting.
That's exactly how I describe it. Like how my body feels at the end of the day. I'm like I don't know exactly how this feels, but imagine working out the entire day,
right?
And then like at the end of the day, that's how my body feels constantly. Like,
yeah.
So that's how I describe it too. And you brought we have another thing in common. I have a twin also.
Oh yeah.
She's able-bodied. She was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, but she's really just clumsy. So she's pretty much able-bodied. So yeah, that's another thing that we have in common. But when did you get into dance and choreography?
Yeah, so I started doing musical theater when I was 9 years old, and I loved being on stage. But as I got older, group choreography became stressful. Like having to dance in a group of non-disabled people was like not my vibe. I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Because it was at a speed at which I couldn't really keep up with, and also I stuck out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So I started, when I was about 14, I started just moving on my own just to see what I could come up with, because I still like to dance, and I didn't think that the only two options should be like do it with everybody else or don't do it at all. So I just like literally pulled a folding chair in front of a mirror and started moving in the chair. And I was like, well, this is interesting too. So then there was a local talent competition in my town for high schoolers. And so I came up with a dance piece out of the chair to like modern music that we would know. And I only did things that like I could do. I didn't try to like imitate anybody else. I was like, this is my piece, especially because it was a solo. And and I was the only one on stage. Like, I didn't have to try to imitate anybody else. So it was really freeing in that way. So anyway, I entered that in the talent competition, and I actually placed third out of like probably about 20 people. And so once I placed, a local director and choreographer that I had done musical theater with was like, I want to expand on this idea and do another dance. So then she choreographed on me, and I entered another competition, and I won that one too. So pretty early on, I was like, oh wait, there's something here. Like, people like to watch it, and it was mostly non-disabled people. So I was like, this has its own artistic merit. Like, it's not like, oh, there's like the one disabled kid on stage with like 25 non-disabled.
It's not like to say, it's not like the disability porn or whatever. Like,
right, yeah. No, I was very careful about how I was presenting it, and really at the end of the day, like, I was just doing it because I liked it. Like, it was nice that it was getting this attention, but I wasn't marketing it as like, oh, look at this disabled body on stage. I was just dancing the way that I knew how to dance. Yeah. So then once that happened, I went to college, and I went to college for acting. And I had a teacher in college in a movement class that did not know what to do with me and was pretty like discriminatory in trying to teach me. I won't get into like all of the horrible things that went on because I don't want to like trigger anyone. It was like not good. But coming out of that class, I was like, okay, I didn't really get an education there because the teacher was not good. So, and other kids in the class felt that too. So someone else who was in the class who is a non-disabled, like classically trained dancer was like, let's do our own movement to try to learn some of what we lost from that like poor teacher. So we created our own movement piece together that sort of looked at the differences between our bodies in like an artistic way. And then we presented that in Boston. So I had all of these like separate pieces, but people were starting to know that I was a mover. So then I took a dance class in Boston with non-disabled people, but the teacher had taught someone with CP, so she was familiar. So I would sort of like find individuals who were like open and accepting and informed, instead of going into the settings of like, this is like a non-disabled musical theater call, or like this is a non-disabled dance class and we're just going to see how it goes. Like, I started to really find people who knew about disabled bodies, and got my education that way.